Have you ever considered the possibility that your soul chose your family before you were even born? Not as an accident, not as a stroke of random chaos, but with the precision and intention of a master artist crafting their most meaningful work. Imagine your soul standing at the threshold of this life, gazing at the path ahead, at the joys, the struggles, and the lessons waiting to unfold. And in that moment, with a wisdom far beyond our human understanding, it decided, this is where I will grow. This is where I will awaken. This is the environment that will shape me into who I am meant to become. Yet here you are, wondering why. Why were you placed in a family that feels more like a battlefield than a sanctuary? Why did life hand you relationships that wounded you instead of nurturing you? Why did the very people who were supposed to love and protect you become the source of your deepest pain? It's a question that lingers in the hearts of so many who have been raised in toxic environments, feeling more broken than whole. But here's a truth that may challenge everything you've believed. Being born into a toxic family is not a punishment. It is not the universe conspiring against you. It is not karma returning to settle an old debt. It is something far greater. It is a gift, a profound, life-altering, paradigm-shifting gift. And I know right now that may seem impossible to believe. How could pain ever be a gift? How could suffering ever hold meaning? Yet, when you begin to look beyond the wounds, beyond the hardship, you may start to see the deeper purpose hidden within your journey. Every challenge, every painful experience has the potential to awaken something extraordinary within you. Strength, resilience, wisdom, and a depth of understanding that others may never reach. Your struggles are not here to break you. They are here to shape you into someone who can transcend them. So let's go deeper. Let's explore the hidden wisdom within your pain, uncover the lessons that were woven into your story long before you arrived in this world. Because when you shift your perspective, you may just discover that the very thing you thought was holding you back was actually preparing you for something greater. If this resonates with you, if you're ready to uncover more profound insights on healing and personal growth, subscribe to this channel. Let's take this journey together. Toxic families are like fire. They burn, they wound, and they leave scars that run deep. But fire is not just a force of destruction. It is also a force of transformation. It forges, it strengthens, it tempers your soul like steel, making you more resilient than you ever thought possible. It strips away the illusion that life is always fair or gentle and forces you to confront the raw, unfiltered truth of the human experience. Toxic families are not just unfortunate circumstances, they are the ultimate training ground for those meant to break generational cycles. Because chosen ones, the ones destined to rise above, to turn pain into power, are not born into ease. They are born into struggle. They are thrown into the fire so they can learn how to withstand the heat. You were never meant to live an ordinary life. You were meant to transcend, to rise beyond the limitations of those who came before you, to break the chains that have bound your lineage for generations. But why? Why would your soul choose to be born into a family that feels so broken, so chaotic, so painful? The answer is profound. The toxicity you were born into is not random. It is ancestral. It is generational. It is the weight of unhealed wounds, unspoken truths, and unconscious patterns passed down through time. And you, with all your strength, your wisdom, your light, were born to put an end to it. Let that sink in. You were not placed here to blend in, to follow the same path as those before you. You were meant to stand out, to rise above, to heal, not just yourself, but the generations before you who never had the chance, and the generations after you who will no longer have to suffer the same fate. You are the bridge between the past and the future, the one who can take centuries of pain and transform it into something new. That is what makes you different. That is what makes you the chosen one. But here's the hardest truth, the part most people struggle to accept. To break a cycle, you must first experience it. You cannot heal what you do not understand. You cannot rise above what you have not yet faced. And so, life placed you in the storm. Not to drown, but to learn how to swim. Not to suffer, but to awaken. Let me ask you something. When you look at your family, what do you see? Do you see anger, neglect, manipulation, control? Do you see patterns of pain that seem to repeat generation after generation? And now the deeper question, where do you see that same energy within yourself? Because the truth is, toxic families don't just wound us, they mirror us. They expose the hidden wounds, the shadows we try to ignore, the pain we haven't yet confronted. They force us to see the parts of ourselves that we are too afraid to face. And this, as painful as it may be, is why it is a gift. Within the fire of your family's dysfunction, you are given an opportunity to truly see yourself, to heal yourself, to transform yourself. And as you do, you don't just heal for yourself, you heal for your entire lineage. The cycles of suffering passed down through generations can end with you. But let's be clear, this is not an easy path. Let's not romanticize the pain. Being born into a toxic family is one of the hardest journeys a soul can choose. It demands an unshakable strength, a resilience that many will never understand. It requires you to face rejection, betrayal, and sometimes even abandonment from the very people who are supposed to love you. And yet, here's the truth. Every time you face it, every time you choose to respond with love instead of hate, with understanding instead of judgment, with compassion instead of anger, you are breaking the cycle. You are doing what no one before you has been able to do. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped fighting your family and started seeing them as your greatest teachers? What if their toxicity was not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their own pain? What if their inability to love you the way you deserve was not because you are unlovable, but because they never learned how to love themselves? This is where the shift happens. This is where healing begins. When you stop seeing your family as the enemy and start recognizing them as wounded souls, people doing the best they can with what they have, you begin to shift. When you stop asking, why are they hurting me? And start asking, what are they teaching me? That's when you unlock the gift hidden within the pain. Because here's the truth, your family's toxicity is not your burden to carry. It is not a weight you are meant to drag through life. It is an invitation to heal. It is an opportunity to remember who you are beyond their projections, beyond their expectations, beyond their pain. It is a call to step into your power as a chosen one, to rewrite the story that has been passed down for generations. But here's the catch. You cannot heal your family. You can only heal yourself. And yet, when you do, when you choose to break free from the cycles that have kept you trapped, you create a ripple effect that changes everything. Not because you force anyone else to change, but because you change. When I was younger, I believed that if I could just be good enough, successful enough, strong enough, I could fix my family. I could save them. I thought that if I could become everything they wanted me to be, maybe the love I longed for would finally be there. But the more I tried, the more I realized saving them was never my job. My job was to save myself, to step outside of the patterns that were keeping me stuck, to break free. And when I did, something miraculous happened. The family dynamics began to shift, not because I demanded it, not because I begged for change, but because I changed. This is the power of being a chosen one. You don't have to fight the darkness. You just have to shine your light. But let me ask you this. What does it mean to shine your light in the face of darkness? What does it mean to love yourself when no one else does? What does it mean to choose peace when chaos surrounds you? These are the questions you must answer. These are the questions that will guide you on your journey. And here's the most beautiful part. The moment you stop seeing your family as a curse and start recognizing them as a gift, everything changes. The moment you stop resisting your path and start embracing it, you step into your power. Because the truth is, you were not born into a toxic family to be broken. You were born into a toxic family to rise, to heal, to awaken. Let's take a moment to go deeper. Something extraordinary happens when a soul is placed in the midst of chaos, dysfunction, and pain. The wounds inflicted by a toxic family don't just leave scars. They leave openings. Openings for light to pour in. Openings for awareness to awaken. Openings for transformation to begin. But here's the paradox. Before you can see the gift, you have to confront the wound, and that's where most people get stuck. They resist the pain. They push it down, burying it under distractions, achievements, or numbness. They build walls around their hearts, convincing themselves that if they ignore it long enough, it will disappear. But pain, especially the kind born from family, is not something you can outrun. It follows you. It lingers in the silence between conversations. It echoes in your relationships, shaping the way you love, the way you trust, the way you see yourself. It seeps into your choices, your fears, your patterns, until one day you realize the only way to heal is to face it. So, take a moment. Think about the wounds you carry from your family. Maybe you were criticized so often that you began to doubt your own worth. Maybe you were ignored so thoroughly that you started to believe your voice didn't matter. Maybe you were controlled so intensely that you forgot how to trust yourself. Or maybe the love you craved was given with conditions, teaching you to equate love with performance, approval, or sacrifice. These wounds are real. They hurt. They shape you. But they are also the catalyst for your awakening. Because every wound carries a lesson. Every scar carries a story. Every pain carries the potential for growth. So let me ask you this. When you think about the pain your family has caused you, what emotions come up? Is it anger, resentment, sadness? Don't run from it. Sit with it, feel it, acknowledge it, because this moment of facing your truth is where your transformation begins. Now, the deeper question, what are those emotions teaching you about yourself? You see, chosen ones are not just here to heal their families, they are here to heal themselves. And healing begins the moment you realize this truth. The pain inflicted upon you was never about you. It was about them, their wounds, their fears, their limitations. But somewhere along the way, you internalized it. You made it about yourself. You took their pain and carried it as if it were your own. And this is where the real work begins. The work of untangling yourself from the story your family wrote for you. The work of reclaiming your identity, your worth, your power. But how? How do you heal from wounds that run so deep they feel like they are woven into your very DNA? How do you break free from patterns that have been passed down like an inheritance of suffering? It begins with awareness. Awareness that the way your family treated you is not a reflection of your value. Awareness that their toxicity is not your destiny. Awareness that you are not here to repeat the cycle, you are here to end it. But awareness is only the first step. The real transformation happens when you take responsibility, not for their actions, not for their choices, not for their inability to love you the way you deserved, but for your healing. Let me share something profound with you. The moment you stop waiting for your family to change, the moment you stop waiting for them to apologize, to validate you, to finally see your worth, that's the moment you set yourself free. Because here's the hard truth. Some people will never change, some wounds will never be acknowledged, some apologies will never come. And that's okay, because your healing does not depend on them. Your healing depends on you. Ask yourself, what would it look like to forgive your family? Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. What would it feel like to release the anger, the resentment, the bitterness? Not because it justifies their actions, but because you no longer want to carry the weight of them. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's not about excusing. It's not about pretending the pain never existed. It's about standing in your power and saying, I will no longer allow your actions to define me. I will no longer carry the pain that was never mine to hold. I will no longer let your wounds shape my future, and this is where the gift becomes clear. Because as you heal, you awaken. As you release the past, you reclaim your power. As you break free from the patterns of your family, you step into the truth of who you are. But let's be honest, healing is messy. It's not a straight path. It's not instant. Some days, the weight of your family's dysfunction will feel unbearable. Some nights, the echoes of the past will haunt you, whispering doubts into your mind. And there will be moments when you wonder, am I strong enough to break this cycle? And in those moments, I want you to remember this. You were chosen for this. Not because it's easy, not because you deserve pain, but because you have the strength to transform it. You are here to turn suffering into strength, pain into purpose, wounds into wisdom. And that is why you were born into this family. To rise, to heal, to awaken. Let me ask you something. What if the very things you see as your weaknesses, the scars left by your family, are actually your greatest strengths? What if the rejection you endured wasn't meant to break you, but to teach you the profound power of self-love? What if the neglect you suffered wasn't a curse, but a lesson in independence, pushing you to rely on yourself in ways others never had to? What if every painful experience was actually shaping you into something greater? Someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient than you ever imagined. This is the alchemy of the chosen ones. We are the ones who take the darkness we were born into and transform it into light. We take the suffering we inherited and use it as fuel for growth. We take the cycles meant to break us and instead we break them. The pain stops with us and the healing begins through us. And this healing is not just personal, it is ancestral. When you choose to heal, you are not only freeing yourself, but you are also setting free the generations that came before you and the ones that will come after you. Your choice to rise above your circumstances does not just change your story, it changes the entire lineage that follows. But let's be honest, this path is not easy. Healing requires you to confront the wounds that others pretend don't exist. It forces you to acknowledge the pain that has been buried for generations. It demands that you feel, process, and ultimately release what was never yours to carry. It is a lonely road at times because it requires you to step away from the patterns and dynamics that may have kept you connected to your family. But in that space of solitude, something miraculous happens. You begin to see yourself clearly. You begin to understand that their toxicity was never about you. Their inability to love, to nurture, to support, it was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their wounds, their limitations, their own battles they never learned how to fight. This is why toxic families, despite their pain, are a gift. Not because the suffering was justified, not because it was fair, but because it forced you to awaken. It forced you to become conscious of patterns most people never question. It gave you a front row seat to dysfunction, not so you could become a part of it, but so you could rise above it. Because when you do, you don't just break free, you become a guiding light for others who are still trapped in the cycle. So now let me ask you this. If you knew that your family's toxicity was the very thing that would lead to your transformation, how would you view it differently? If you knew that every wound was an invitation to grow, how would you respond to it? Would you continue to see yourself as a victim of your past, or would you recognize yourself as the warrior you have become? Because the truth is, you are not a victim of your family. You are the cycle breaker. You are not here to repeat their pain. You are here to transcend it. You were not born into a toxic family to be broken by it. You were born into it to rise. And that, my friend, is the gift. Now that we've uncovered the purpose hidden behind the pain, let's dive into the path forward. Because the truth is, knowing you're a chosen one isn't enough. Understanding that your toxic family was a gift doesn't automatically make the journey easier. The real work begins when you decide to take responsibility for your life, your healing, and your growth. It's one thing to acknowledge the cycles of dysfunction that shaped you. It's another to actively break free from them. True transformation happens when you stop waiting for your family to change and instead focus on changing yourself. When you realize that the power to heal, to grow, to redefine your life has been within you all along. But what does true freedom look like? Not just the kind of freedom that comes from cutting ties or physically walking away. That's only the surface. True freedom is deeper. It's the kind where you no longer react to their words, their actions, their judgments. Where their opinions no longer hold weight, their dysfunction no longer dictates your choices, and their toxicity no longer has the power to limit you. This is the kind of freedom that is unshakable because it comes from within. It's not about escaping your family, it's about transcending them. It's about reaching a place where their presence or their absence no longer determines your happiness, your peace, or your sense of self-worth. This is the path of liberation. And it starts with a single powerful decision. The decision to stop living in reaction to your family and start living in alignment with your truth. The moment you stop trying to prove yourself, to earn their love, to gain their approval, is the moment you set yourself free. Because your worth has never been something they had the power to define, it has always been yours to claim. The journey forward is not about fixing them, it's about freeing yourself. It's about stepping fully into the person you were always meant to be, unburdened, unchained, and unapologetically you. But here's the thing about breaking free. It's not about running away. You can move to the other side of the world, cut all contact, and build an entirely new life, yet still carry your family's wounds within you. Because the chains that bind you aren't external. They're internal. They exist in the way you see yourself, the way you react to conflict, the way you love, and the way you doubt. They're woven into the beliefs you've internalized, the patterns you've inherited, and the stories you've told yourself about who you are and what you're worth. Physical distance doesn't heal emotional wounds. Time alone doesn't break generational cycles. True liberation begins within. The first step on this path is awareness. Awareness of the invisible forces shaping your thoughts, your choices, and your relationships. It requires deep self-reflection, the courage to examine the beliefs that have been passed down to you, and the willingness to challenge the narratives you've accepted as truth. Ask yourself, what patterns from my family am I unconsciously repeating in my own life? Am I mirroring their fears, their insecurities, their limitations? What beliefs about myself did I inherit from their words or actions? Do I carry their judgments as my own, believing I'm not enough, not worthy, not lovable? And most importantly, what stories am I telling myself about who I am because of the way they treated me? These are not easy questions. They will stir emotions you've buried, wounds you thought had healed, and truths you've been avoiding. But this is the work. This is the foundation of healing. Because you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot break free from a cycle you won't even admit exists. And you cannot reclaim your power until you see, with absolute clarity, where it was taken from you. This is where your healing begins. This is where you take your power back. Are you ready? Think about it. Maybe you grew up in a family where love was conditional, only given when you achieved something, met expectations, or behaved a certain way. And now as an adult, you find yourself constantly striving for perfection, chasing external validation, and believing that your worth is measured by your success. Or perhaps you were raised in an environment where your voice didn't matter, where your feelings were dismissed and your ideas ignored. And now you hesitate to speak up, doubt your intuition, and suppress your truth out of fear of rejection. These patterns, beliefs, and stories are not just memories. They are the invisible chains that keep you tied to your family's toxicity. But here's the key. Until you identify them, you cannot break free from them. This is why awareness is so important. The moment you recognize these unconscious patterns, you create space for change. However, awareness alone is not enough. Knowing why you react a certain way or where your wounds come from is just the beginning. The next step, the true path to freedom, is healing. And healing is not about fixing yourself. You are not broken. It's about remembering who you were before the wounds, before the conditioning, before the world told you who you had to be. Healing is the process of peeling back the layers of false narratives, stripping away the limiting beliefs, and reconnecting with your authentic self. But let me be honest with you. Healing is not linear. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. Some days you'll feel like you've made progress, only to be triggered and feel like you're back at square one. But that's part of the journey. It's a process of unlearning everything you thought you knew about yourself and rebuilding from the ground up. And it requires 3 essential things: self-love, self-compassion, and self-discipline. Because healing isn't just about feeling better, it's about doing the work, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when it would be easier to fall back into old patterns. Self-love is the foundation. It is the radical act of choosing yourself, even when no one else does. It's the commitment to honoring your needs, respecting your boundaries, and recognizing your worth, no matter how your family treated you. It's the realization that you are enough just as you are without needing to prove anything to anyone. But let's be real. Self-love isn't always easy, especially when you've spent years being conditioned to believe that you are unworthy, unlovable, or not enough. That's where self-compassion comes in. Self-compassion is the gentle voice that reassures you in the moments you feel broken. It's the part of you that whispers, "It's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to not have it all figured out." It reminds you that healing is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about understanding that setbacks don't mean failure, and that you are still worthy even on the days you struggle. Self-compassion allows you to sit with your pain without judgment, to embrace your emotions without shame, and to move forward at your own pace. And then there's self-discipline, the part of healing that isn't talked about enough. Because the truth is, healing is hard work. It's not just about feeling your emotions, it's about taking action. It requires you to show up for yourself every single day, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's painful, even when it feels like nothing is changing. It's about making conscious choices that align with your highest self, even when the old patterns are calling you back. Self-discipline is what keeps you moving forward when motivation fades. It's what helps you set boundaries, practice self-care, and walk away from situations that no longer serve you. When you combine self-love, self-compassion, and self-discipline, you create a foundation for true transformation. You stop waiting for validation from others. You learn to navigate your emotions with kindness, and you develop the resilience needed to break free from the patterns of your past. This is the work of healing. This is the path to freedom. Let me ask you this. What would your life look like if you lived every day as though you were worthy of love, respect, and happiness? Imagine waking up each morning knowing deep in your soul that you deserve to be treated with kindness, not just by others, but by yourself. What choices would you make? Would you still seek approval from those who refuse to see your worth? What boundaries would you set? Would you continue tolerating behaviors that drain you, or would you stand firm in protecting your peace? What relationships would you let go of? Would you keep holding on to connections that leave you feeling empty, or would you release them with grace, trusting that better is coming? Because this is what breaking free truly means. It's not about changing your family, it's about changing yourself. It's about stepping out of the role they cast you in and reclaiming your truth. Maybe they saw you as the black sheep, the caretaker, the problem solver, or the invisible one. But none of those labels define you. You are more than their projections. You are more than their limitations. And the moment you realize that, you take your power back. But here's the deeper truth. Breaking free doesn't mean abandoning your family. It doesn't necessarily mean cutting ties or walking away unless that is truly what you need for your well-being. Breaking free is an internal shift. It's about detaching from their energy, their expectations, and their narratives. It's about loving them from a place of wholeness rather than obligation. It's about seeing them for who they are, flawed, wounded, and imperfect, and choosing to rise above their pain instead of being consumed by it. And here's the most beautiful part. As you heal, you become a mirror. You reflect back to your family what's possible. You show them that transformation is possible, that freedom is possible, that love, real, unconditional love, is possible. You may never hear them say it. They may never acknowledge your growth or admit their own wounds, but your healing will inspire them in ways you cannot even imagine. Your light will awaken something in them, even if they don't know how to express it. So, keep going, keep healing, keep rising. Because your journey is not just about you, it's about creating a legacy of love, strength, and transformation for generations to come. What if your greatest act of love for your family is not fixing them, but becoming the fullest, freest version of yourself? What if the very thing that sets you apart, the wounds, the struggles, the pain, was never meant to break you, but to shape you? What if your healing is the seed of change, the silent revolution that transforms generations, even if it takes years or lifetimes to bloom? This is the path of the chosen ones. It's not an easy path, it's not a glamorous path, but it is a path of purpose, of transformation, of liberation. So as we come to the end of this journey together, I want you to remember one thing. Your family's toxicity is not your destiny. It is your training ground. It is the fire that forges you. Every time you choose to rise above it, every time you choose to heal, to love yourself despite their dysfunction, you are fulfilling your purpose. You were not born into a toxic family by accident. You were born into it because you are strong enough to transcend it, because you are wise enough to learn from it, because you are brave enough to heal it. And as you walk this path, remember, you are not alone. There are millions of chosen ones out there just like you, breaking cycles, healing wounds, rewriting destinies. Together we are creating a new world, one where love, compassion, and truth are the foundation. So ask yourself one final question. If you fully embraced your role as a chosen one, if you fully stepped into your power, what kind of life would you create? Because that life is waiting for you, and it begins the moment you decide to claim it.